Hey, this is Albarran. Thanks for coming back to my channel. In this video, I want to talk about buying a home, buying real estate as an entrepreneur, right? We hear all the time about how business owners can't get a mortgage and it's much more difficult. And yes, that is a part of the story, but I just went through this process. Usually my videos are with a different background, but I just moved into this house with my fiance and my dog down here. So I just went through the process. It was extremely stressful. It was extremely tedious, but it's all worth it. But I just want to give you, if I could go back and I had a video like this, it would help me a lot understanding the process, understanding as an entrepreneur what it really takes to get a mortgage, to not just get a mortgage, but even understand the closing process. And again, as an entrepreneur, just to recap, you're not as trustworthy to a bank if you have a W-2 income. If you have a job at, Apple, most banks would rather lend money to that person rather than an entrepreneur because they look at it as more risky. But in this video, I'm going to break down the step-by-step process to, if you accomplish these things, if you get that checklist going for everything in this video that's time-stamped, you can, I'm sure, get any mortgage that you want in no time. So thanks for watching. The number one thing is income verification, right? If you're a W-2 employee at a big company, maybe they pay you 250 grand a year, your W-2 pay stubs, all you do is turn that in and that's your income verification. And like I said, banks love that. It's very, of course, verifiable. It's very, in their eyes, predictable. You're not going to lose your job. Whereas if you have a business, even if you make $400,000 in net profit, it's a bit more cloudy. It's a bit different with how you verify income. And this is where, number one, most entrepreneurs, when they want to go to buy a house, it catches up to them, right? Because maybe they took a lot of deductions and on paper with their tax returns, it doesn't show a lot of income. So they want to buy $1 million property, but they only qualify for $600,000. So income verification is extremely important, but you want to think about with your income, you can do the tax returns, right? You have 2 years of tax returns that are necessary to get a mortgage as a business owner, at least 2 years of prior tax returns, or another product is a bank statement loan. So let's say you have an LLC, you have a business bank account, you can have 12 months or 24 months of your business bank statements. You give that to a mortgage broker, they can get you a loan based on that, because as a business owner, that shows your income and essentially ability to generate revenue as an entrepreneur. So again, you don't have to do the tax returns, but you need one or the other, right? You can't say, oh, I make money on the side or I get cash from clients. You can't have it both ways, right? You have to show the income on paper for at least 2 years. And again, if you don't have the income verification, you're going to get stopped right there. And so this is the number one thing you have to think about. The second thing is business history. So as I mentioned prior, they want 2 years of tax returns or 2 years of your business bank statements, but they also want to see that you've been in business officially for at least 2 years straight. A lot of people, they start a business, they do it from their personal bank account. They don't really professionalize it. They try to get a mortgage, but their business is running through their personal finances. So it's important, once you start a business, immediately get that LLC with whatever state that you live in, because at least at that point, the business on paper is at least started. So if you want to get a mortgage 2.5 years from now, at least you have that LLC saying, hey, I started it on January 1st, 2024, and maybe you get a mortgage in 2027, right? So the business history, the banks look for that, and that's a non-negotiable, because if you started your business last year and you're making a lot of money, they look at it as like it could be a fluke. You could be out of business next year. So the more years you have a business history, the more trustworthy you are to a bank for a mortgage. Number 3 is your credit score. The whole idea behind this video is that banks don't trust you and I, right? So how do we make them trust us? A lot of it is in the credit score, because as an entrepreneur, you're not as trustworthy to a bank. So you need a higher than average credit score even to qualify for anything. So from my knowledge, you need at least a 740 or higher, right? A lot of mortgages or videos you see online, they say you can get a mortgage for 600, 650, or you can get an FHA, but those are for W-2 employees. So a bank looks at it like, hey, maybe they had a medical debt from 7 years ago. They're a 675, 650, but they've worked a stable job for 15 years. They like that risk. But as an entrepreneur, you've been in business for 2 years and you have a 625 credit score. Banks don't like it as much. And so as an entrepreneur, make sure that way before you want to get a mortgage, your credit is built up. Even if it's just credit cards, you buy, some groceries, you pay it off, get that score above 740. And of course, the higher it is, the better interest rate you're going to get. And as an entrepreneur, you have different types of loans. So let's say you're getting a house for maybe $600,000. You can get a conventional mortgage, even with a bank statement loan. But in terms of your actual mortgage, it can be conventional where you put 10% down. But nowadays, most houses are going to be a jumbo loan. over maybe 700,000-800,000 or so, depending on your zip code. So as a jumbo loan and as an entrepreneur, most banks require 20% down. This is the killer for so many people because, again, they heard on some video or they read some book about real estate, and it's like, oh, you could put as little as 3.5% down for an FHA or 5% down for a conventional. But again, a conventional mortgage is good, but at a certain amount of loan, you need a jumbo loan. You can't do 10% down, even with great credit and great income verification. So the down payment for most loans nowadays as an entrepreneur safely is about 20% just for the down payment, not even closing costs, not other reserves as well. And so you want at least 20% down just to be safe. And then of course, I'll talk about other costs later in the video. So as I just mentioned, your down payment as an entrepreneur, I would budget at least 20%, but you have closing costs as well. And that, again, is a big killer for a lot of people because they save their 20%, they scrap, they have their 20% down, and they don't think about the closing costs, right? You're paying your mortgage broker, you're paying documentary stamp taxes, you're paying other transfer taxes, you're paying HOA fees, capital contribution, like these things add up, and many times are well over $75,000, $100,000, and a lot of people don't budget for that. So closing cost, I'd probably budget another 5 or even 6% of the purchase price. So you have your 20% down payment, you have your 5 or 6% for closing cost, and especially as an entrepreneur, a lot of banks would want at least 12 months of reserves. Let's say your mortgage payment's gonna be even $5,000 a month. So that's $60,000 a year just for the mortgage, right? Not taxes, not insurance, not repairs or home maintenance. $60,000 a year. They're gonna want that in the bank outside of the down payment and the closing costs. They're gonna want extra reserves because maybe you get a mortgage on the first of the month, the next day you lose your job. They want to make sure that you have probably a year. If not, if you have a lower credit score, they might want 18 months or 2 years of reserves. So now you're talking about 6% for closing costs, 20% for down payment, maybe another 100 grand for reserves. And we're not even talking taxes and other things. And so again, you want to think about down payment, 20%, closing costs, 6% of the purchase price. You also have about 12 to even 24 months, let's even say 18 months of reserves in the bank. And here's another wrinkle that happened with my deal. Let's say you're buying a house for $1 million. You get a loan, everything's working well, but then an appraiser, they appraise the property for the bank in terms of how much it's worth. Maybe they say it's worth $920,000. Love the property, you think it's worth 1.2. Maybe they differ with your opinion, but now the seller's like, well, I need the money. I think it's worth more than one, but I'm giving you a deal, so I'm not gonna meet you there. Now there's an $80,000 gap. You can either walk away from the deal, maybe your dream home, or you can put up the $80,000 and you can meet the contract price. And so if you don't have that cash, you're kind of SOL. So again, you have down payment, closing costs, reserves, and you want extra money in the bank for if you love a deal, you're putting everything into it, you're committed, you want to have those reserves to where if it doesn't appraise and you have to meet a difference of what the appraisal value is, that's what the bank is willing to loan on versus what the contract is. Sometimes it can be a big gap, but if you love a property, you think it's undervalued and it's gonna be higher valued in the future, you wanna have the cash on hand to say, you know what, we're gonna go with the deal, we're gonna put it in, and again, in 10 years, this is probably gonna, God willing, double or triple, but if I didn't have the money, we didn't have the money to make that appraisal value go up to contract value, we would have lost the deal. So you want to account for that. So again, the idea is that you have down and closing and reserves and these other things. And it's not to scare you. It's just so that if you're going to go buy a home, your budget is correct. You also know what you're getting into. So you don't want to get all committed. You don't want the family like looking at pictures. You don't want to buy furniture and then you don't have the closing costs or you don't have the reserves. You don't have the appraisal difference, right? So you want to make sure that you're financially prepared so that once your emotions get involved, your finances can back it up. Location, location, location. We've all heard it. We've all watched that webinar, read that book on real estate, and that's the biggest thing. But at the end of the day, there's only so many front row seats at a boxing event, at the Super Bowl, right? At a play, there's only so many front row seats. So you have to think about in real estate, what's considered the front row seats, and you probably have beach, you have on the water, like maybe like a bay, Tampa Bay, or like a canal that can lead into the Gulf of Mexico. Wherever state you're in, there's always the front row seat. Maybe it's a beautiful property that's overlooking the city, like in Las Vegas, you know? And so you have to think about, can I wait longer? Can I rent? Can I save and wait a few extra years to get that prime location? Because at the end of the day, you don't move into a house thinking about what am I going to make when it sells, but you also have to think about, hey, if I do want to sell it, life happens, right? You move for a job or your business changes or something happens and you have to sell it. You have to think about the resale value and the marketability, like what's going to make the difference. And most deals, it's the location, right? So that's why you have some little kind of rinky-dink things on the beach and they're $5 million. And it's like, yeah, because it's right on the beach. Someone's going to tear it down, build a $50 million estate, right? So location, location, location. I say that, but then your practicality is like, okay, well, how can I like not buy a house right now? Stay down to earth, save, 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 save. And when you can pull the trigger, get that stretch, get that property with that prime location so that if you ever have to sell it, you're gonna sell it fast. You're gonna at least get your money back, God willing. Everything's gonna work out. And of course, you're gonna have a beautiful location that you can enjoy. Thanks for watching this video. Again, I made this video because if I watched this video or something like it before I started looking for a house, it would have helped me a lot understand what I'm really getting into. And again, a lot of us are, as business owners, we're financially savvy, we know numbers, we're almost like kind of quasi-accountants, like we know how to manage our finances, but at the end of the day, you're at the whim if you're getting a mortgage of a bank and even just the process of buying real estate as an entrepreneur. So I just wanted to make this video, share my experience, and if you have any questions, if you want a referral for a mortgage broker for entrepreneurs who specializes with entrepreneurs, I have the guy. If you want that information, comment below, or if you want a realtor as well, I have his info, comment below. But again, if you have any questions for me, comment below about the process or anything that I can help with, and hope this helped, and have a great day. Thank you.